What if I told you that the next meal you grab could land you in a hospital bed instead of satisfying your hunger? Think about it. Right now, somewhere across the country, someone is biting into a burger, twirling pasta on their fork, or loading up a plate at a buffet, completely unaware of what's lurking in their food. They believe someone's got their back. They assume kitchens are spotless, employees follow the rules, and that chicken sitting under those bright lights hasn't been breeding bacteria for hours. But here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Your trust might be dangerously misplaced. Every single year, millions of people just like you walk into familiar restaurant chains. Places you've been to dozens of times. Places where you celebrated birthdays, grabbed quick lunches, or stopped after a long road trip. You never questioned what happened behind those kitchen doors because why would you? These are major corporations with reputations to protect, right? They wouldn't dare cut corners on something as crucial as food safety. Except they do. And when researchers start pulling health inspection records and digging through federal investigation files, a disturbing pattern emerges that most customers never see. Recent findings from government health agencies paint a concerning picture. The very systems designed to protect you aren't working the way you think they are. For years now, the agencies responsible for checking food facilities have been falling short of their own inspection goals. When inspectors actually do show up at facilities, they're finding serious problems at a troubling number of locations. But here's what really matters. Even when they discover violations that could make you sick, follow-up visits to make sure those problems got fixed often don't happen in time. Sometimes they don't happen at all. So what does that mean for you? It means you could be eating at a place that failed an inspection months ago, assuming everything's been cleaned up, when in reality nobody verified that anything changed. The violations just sit there in some file while customers keep walking through the door. Now, I'm not here to spread panic or make you never want to eat out again. What I am here to do is share information you deserve to know. Information that comes from official government records, not internet gossip or anonymous reviews. We're talking about documented cases investigated by state health departments, federal agencies like the CDC and FDA, and situations so serious they resulted in criminal charges and millions of dollars in penalties. These aren't small mom-and-pop restaurants that might not know better. These are massive chains that absolutely should know better. Over the next hour, we're going to walk through 7 specific restaurant chains where investigators discovered conditions that would make your stomach turn. I'm going to share exactly what inspectors found, what happened to the people who ate there, and why these problems keep happening despite all the money and resources these companies have. If you've eaten at any of these places recently, and honestly most of us have, you need to hear this. Not to scare you, but to arm you with facts. Let's start with a place that seems innocent enough on the surface. An all-you-can-eat buffet where families gather for Sunday dinners and retirees enjoy affordable meals. The problem is, buffet-style dining creates a perfect storm for food safety disasters. Think about how it works. Food sits out for hours in those warming trays, held at temperatures where bacteria love to multiply. Hundreds of hands touch the same serving spoons throughout the day. Items get cross-contaminated as people accidentally mix dishes together. And all of this is happening in plain sight while customers load their plates, completely trusting that someone's monitoring the situation. Inspectors who visit these buffet locations regularly see things that would shock most diners. Down in Florida back in the summer of 2017, state health officials walked into one of these buffet restaurants for a routine check. What they found forced them to shut the place down immediately. The inspection report documented something they described as too many rodent droppings to count. Let that sink in for a moment. Not a few droppings. So many they couldn't even provide an accurate number. These droppings were scattered under the salad bar where you'd been piling lettuce and tomatoes onto your plate. They were in multiple buffet areas and throughout the kitchen where your food was being prepared. Inspectors also discovered a dead rodent somewhere in the facility. Here's what makes it worse. This wasn't a surprise problem that suddenly appeared overnight. Just 2 months before this shutdown, the same restaurant had been warned about rodent activity. During that earlier visit, inspectors counted over 30 droppings near the salad bar and documented flying insects buzzing around the food. The restaurant knew they had a problem. They'd been told to fix it. And they either didn't care enough or didn't do enough to actually solve it. But wait, there's more from that same inspection. When officials started checking food temperatures, They found items stored in the cooler at dangerously warm levels. The regulations say certain foods need to stay at 41 degrees or colder to prevent bacterial growth. What did they find instead? Lettuce sitting at 70 degrees. Eggs at 69. Blue cheese at 70. Ham at 70 degrees. None of these items had proper labels showing when they'd been prepared. The restaurant had to throw out massive amounts of food because it had been stored so improperly it wasn't safe to serve. You might think that was an isolated incident at one poorly run location. Except the pattern repeats across the country at this chain. Jump forward to 2022 in Indiana. A customer sits down with her salad, takes a bite, and watches in horror as a cockroach crawls out of her food onto her plate. Health inspectors rushed to investigate and found multiple live roaches throughout the building. Not dead ones that might have been there for a while. Live ones actively moving around where food was being prepared and served. Fast forward to just a few months ago in Florida. Inspectors conducting a routine check wrote up 20 separate violations at one location during a single visit. They counted 37 rodent droppings in 2 different areas. They found black and green mold growing inside the ice machine. You know, the machine that makes ice for customers' drinks. Pizza was sitting out on something called a time plan, which is supposed to track how long food can safely sit at room temperature, except nobody had marked the time. So there was no way to know if that pizza had been sitting there for 20 minutes or 4 hours. Baked potatoes that should have been kept hot at 135 degrees were being held in a warming unit that wasn't even turned on. One location in Florida became particularly notorious. Over the course of just 12 months, inspectors had to return 16 times because violations weren't getting corrected. They racked up 185 total violations in a single year. Dead roaches and droppings under the bakery ovens where desserts were being made. Mold in the ice machine again. Raw meat stored above ready-to-eat foods, which means juices from uncooked animal products could drip down onto food headed straight to customers' plates. When you grab a plate at one of these buffets, you're putting faith in a system. You trust that temperatures are being monitored, that surfaces are clean, that nobody's letting rodents have free run of the place. At far too many of these locations, that trust has been completely violated. Now let's talk about a casual dining chain that brands itself as your neighborhood spot. They want you to think of them as friendly, familiar, the kind of place where everybody knows your name. They've decorated with local sports memorabilia and nostalgic items to make you feel at home. But what health inspectors have discovered at multiple locations would horrify any actual neighbor who cared about your well-being. Summer of 2019 in Florida. Right around lunchtime, a location gets shut down after state inspectors find live roaches crawling on packaged croutons meant for customer salads. Think about that. The croutons come in sealed bags from a supplier, presumably clean and safe. By the time they're sitting in this restaurant's kitchen, roaches are crawling on the packaging. The inspection documented 10 total violations. Small flying insects in the kitchen. Live roaches in the area where dishes are washed. Roaches on the walls. Roaches near the dry storage shelves and freezer. 4 entire boxes of croutons had to be tossed because they'd been contaminated by roach activity. When local news crews showed up to investigate, staff refused to let cameras anywhere near the kitchen. The corporate office released a carefully worded statement about how health and safety remains their top priority, which is exactly what every company says when they get caught. Another location from the same chain in the same general area dealt with identical roach problems. Down in Georgia, one restaurant failed their inspection so badly they scored a 66 out of 100. Inspectors found food debris caked above cooking equipment, mold in the ice machine, and food not being kept at proper cold temperatures. The most disturbing discovery was numerous live roaches inside an unused ice cream bin. And here's the kicker. They'd been cited for the exact same violation with roaches in that same ice cream bin just 2 months earlier when they'd scored a C grade. They got caught, got written up, and apparently did nothing to actually fix the problem. Move up to Wisconsin in late 2024. Another temporary closure after cockroach complaints. A former employee came forward with photos and video showing what they claimed were roaches in kitchen areas. The health department inspection revealed the restaurant had been professionally treated for roaches at least 3 times before this closure. When reporters visited, a manager denied there were any roaches and claimed the health department had actually shut them down for a hot water issue. Except the official records tell a different story. This chain has also been connected to outbreaks that made people genuinely sick. Back in 2014, 15 people in Minnesota developed confirmed E. coli infections traced to contaminated cabbage in one of the restaurant's signature salads. Then in 2020, a location in Illinois exposed customers to hepatitis A when an infected employee worked while contagious. Anyone who ate there during a 10-day window potentially got exposed to a highly contagious liver infection. Behind all the cheerful commercials and neighborhood branding lies a documented pattern of sanitation failures that keeps repeating across the country. Let's shift gears to an American icon that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. With over 2,000 locations spread across 25 states, this chain has become such a reliable presence during emergencies that the Federal Emergency Management Agency created an informal metric based on whether these restaurants stay open during disasters. If they're closed, the storm must be really bad. That's become the joke. But running nonstop every single day creates food safety challenges that many locations simply can't handle properly. Early 2023 in South Florida. State inspectors order an immediate shutdown after finding multiple serious problems. Live roaches crawling on the wall right next to the sink where dishes are supposed to be washed. More live roaches on the kitchen floor. Moldy strawberries sitting in the walk-in cooler that should have been keeping food fresh and safe. Flying insects landing on a knife and cutting board while someone was actively preparing food. The dishwashing machine only reaching 152 degrees when state law requires 160 for proper sanitization. No soap at the hand-washing sink, which means employees couldn't properly wash their hands even if they wanted to. And to top it all off, the restaurant was operating with an expired license. Up in North Carolina, one location got a B grade after an inspector witnessed something that should horrify anyone who eats out. An employee dropped a utensil on the floor, picked it up, and then put on clean gloves without washing their hands first. This same location had documented roaches on the cook line during a previous inspection. Inspectors had also seen dirty water leaking onto pork chops during an earlier visit. All across the country, these 24-hour locations have faced temporary closures because of roach infestations. Inspectors have documented cutting boards so deeply grooved and scratched they can't be properly cleaned or sanitized anymore. Hand-washing sinks being used as dump sinks or prep sinks, which violates basic food safety codes. Food held at temperatures perfect for dangerous bacteria to grow and multiply. This is the chain that prides itself on never closing, on being a beacon of reliability when everything else shuts down. Yet they've repeatedly failed to maintain basic cleanliness during ordinary, everyday operations. Before we continue, I want to take just a moment here. If you're finding this information useful and eye-opening, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We spend serious time researching these stories, digging through official documents, and verifying every fact so you can make smarter choices about where you eat and where you take your family. Don't let this be the last investigation you see. Subscribe right now so the next time we expose problems in the food industry, you'll be among the first to know. Alright, let's keep going. How about a sports bar chain famous for chicken wings served in dozens of sauce flavors? Millions of people visit these locations every year to watch games on big screens while munching on wings and appetizers. The atmosphere is all about fun and sports and good times. But their food safety record tells a much darker story that's been documented by health officials across multiple states. Winter of 2016 in Kansas. A location gets linked to a norovirus outbreak that made at least 10 people sick. Many of the victims were high school students on the swim and dive team who'd been there for a fundraiser. When state health inspectors showed up to investigate, they discovered 17 different code violations. One employee was literally observed wiping his nose with the back of his gloved hand while handling food. The restaurant had to close for deep cleaning and sanitization before being allowed to reopen. This chain keeps popping up in hepatitis A exposure cases, which creates serious health risks for thousands of customers. Spring of 2018 in Michigan. An employee gets diagnosed with hepatitis A. The county health department confirms the illness during their inspection. Anyone who'd eaten at that location during a 2-week window faced potential exposure and needed to talk to their doctor about getting vaccinated. More recently, late 2024 in California. Health officials issue a warning after confirming hepatitis A in an employee at a location near Los Angeles. This infected worker had been on shift while contagious for over a week. Health officials recommended that anyone who'd consumed food or drinks during that time frame get the hepatitis A vaccine if they weren't already immune. Here's why hepatitis A is so scary. It's incredibly contagious and attacks your liver. Symptoms include fever, exhaustion you can't shake, nausea, loss of appetite, yellowing of your skin and eyes, stomach pain, vomiting, dark urine, and diarrhea. The real problem is timing. Symptoms typically start anywhere from 15 to 50 days after you get infected. By the time you realize you might have been exposed, the window for effective vaccination might already be closed. You're just stuck waiting to see if you get sick. Health inspectors have documented repeated violations at locations nationwide. Flying insects near food prep areas. Food stored at improper temperatures. The kind of basic failures that shouldn't be happening at a major chain with resources and training programs. Now we come to a fast casual chain that built its entire reputation on fresh ingredients and higher quality food. They charged premium prices and customers gladly paid because they believed they were getting something better than typical fast food. The company marketed itself with phrases like food with integrity. Then between 2015 and 2018, this chain became nationally known for making people sick in a way that shocked the entire restaurant industry. The United States Department of Justice actually charged this company with adulterating food, which violates federal law. According to the factual statement the company agreed was accurate, they were connected to at least 5 separate foodborne illness outbreaks during that period. The incidents happened at locations in California, Massachusetts, Virginia, and Ohio. More than 1,100 people got sick. August 2015 in California. A location sickened approximately 234 customers and employees with Norovirus. According to court documents from a later class action lawsuit, the restaurant let a sick employee keep working for 2 days, directly violating their own food safety policies. That employee allegedly came into contact with more than 3,000 meals during those 2 days. December 2015 in Boston. Another norovirus outbreak at a location near Boston College. More than 140 people became ill, including many college students and members of the basketball team. According to the legal agreement, the outbreak likely started with a manager who was told to keep working after vomiting in the restaurant. 2 days after throwing up, this same person helped package a catering order for the basketball team. July 2018 in Ohio. A single location sickened approximately 647 people with a pathogen that grows rapidly when food isn't held at appropriate temperatures. The local health department found critical violations specifically related to controls for lettuce and beans. This company agreed to pay a $25 million criminal fine as part of their legal settlement. That remains the largest fine ever imposed in a food safety case in United States history. They entered a 3-year agreement requiring them to implement comprehensive food safety programs. When a company that markets itself on quality and integrity causes over 1,000 people to get sick and pays a record-breaking fine, that says everything about the gap between their marketing and their reality. Finally, let's talk about the biggest name in fast food. The Golden Arches that represent the single largest fast food chain on planet Earth. They serve roughly 69 million customers every single day across more than 40,000 locations worldwide. This company has spent decades building supply chains and systems designed to deliver consistent food. When something goes wrong at this massive scale, though, the consequences can spread across an entire nation. Late 2024. An E. coli outbreak linked to one of their signature hamburgers sickened 104 confirmed patients across 14 states. Of those patients, 34 required hospitalization. 4 people developed a potentially life-threatening condition that can cause kidney failure. 1 person, an older adult in Colorado, died from their illness. Federal investigators from multiple agencies traced the outbreak to contaminated onions supplied by a produce company in Colorado. These onions were served raw on hamburgers at locations across multiple states. The contaminated onions caused illnesses starting in late September and continuing through October. The outbreak forced the chain to temporarily remove this burger from menus at approximately 3,000 stores. This wasn't their first major food safety incident in recent years either. Back in 2018, more than 500 people contracted an intestinal illness after eating salads at their restaurants. When you're operating at this scale, serving this many people every day, your supply chain becomes incredibly complex. One contaminated ingredient from a single supplier can sicken hundreds of people across multiple states before anyone even realizes there's a problem. The size that makes these chains successful is the same size that makes outbreaks devastating when they happen. So what does all of this mean for you? These aren't small, isolated incidents at poorly run independent restaurants. These are major chains with corporate structures, training programs, and resources that should prevent these problems. Yet the violations keep happening. The outbreaks keep occurring. The fines get paid, and then more violations show up at different locations. The hard truth is that many factors work against food safety in chain restaurants. Constant pressure to keep labor costs low means fewer staff trying to manage the same workload. High employee turnover means training often gets rushed or skipped. Busy rush periods create shortcuts as workers try to keep up with demand. Food sitting too long at unsafe temperatures because nobody's monitoring closely. Sick employees coming to work because they can't afford to miss a shift, or because management pressures them to work anyway. Every time you eat out, you're trusting strangers to care about your health. You're trusting that the cook washed their hands, that the produce got washed properly, that the chicken reached a safe internal temperature, that someone threw out food that sat too long, that the manager sent home the employee who was vomiting, that the restaurant called an exterminator when they saw the first roach instead of ignoring it. Most of the time, nothing bad happens. You eat your meal, you go home, life continues. But when things do go wrong, the consequences can range from mild food poisoning that ruins your weekend to severe illness requiring hospitalization to permanent health complications or even death. What can you actually do with this information? First, trust your instincts. If a restaurant looks or smells off, leave. If you see something concerning like pests or unsanitary conditions, report it to your local health department. Second, many states publish health inspection scores online. Before trying a new place, spend 2 minutes looking up their recent inspection history. See what violations they've had and whether problems are recurring or getting fixed. Third, be smart about what you order. During slower periods, food might have been sitting longer. Buffets create more opportunities for contamination than made-to-order meals. Raw or undercooked items carry more risk than fully cooked foods. Fourth, pay attention to how you feel after eating somewhere. If you get sick within hours or days after a meal, especially if multiple people in your group have the same symptoms, report it to your health department. That's how outbreaks get identified and stopped. Your report could prevent hundreds of others from getting sick. And fifth, vote with your wallet. When restaurants demonstrate patterns of violations and don't take food safety seriously, stop giving them your money. Companies ultimately respond to financial pressure more than anything else. The restaurants featured in this investigation aren't the only chains with food safety problems. These are simply 7 with particularly well-documented issues backed by official records. Nearly every major chain has had violations at various locations. The difference is whether those violations are occasional isolated incidents that get immediately corrected or whether they're part of ongoing patterns that show systemic problems. Your safety matters. Your family's health matters. You work hard for your money and you deserve food that won't make you sick. Don't blindly trust that someone else is protecting you. Health inspection systems have gaps. Corporate oversight has limits. Enforcement depends on overworked, underfunded local health departments. You need to be your own advocate and make informed choices. If this investigation opened your eyes to problems you didn't know existed, share this information with people you care about. Leave a comment below telling me which chain's violations shocked you most. Hit that like button if you want us to keep investigating these issues and exposing the truth about the food industry. And absolutely make sure you're subscribed because we're going to keep digging into these stories, pulling back the curtain on what really happens in restaurant kitchens and giving you the facts you need to make smarter decisions. The next time you're deciding where to eat, you'll think twice. You'll ask better questions. You'll pay closer attention. And that awareness, that informed caution, could be what keeps you and your family safe. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next investigation.